Hey Jacob, how's it going?
I'm good, Amaya. How are you?
Good. So
Good.
today we've got some interesting takes to share. So by this point, for the past few months, it's been swirling around that the EU would be making moves to standardize
Sure.
wired charging. And in early June, they finally did that. So by autumn 2024, all electronic devices will need to have a standardized method of wired charging via USB-C.
Sure.
And I mean, at this point, the consensus or the lukewarm take is this is great for consumers, but it is very, very, very disruptive in a few different ways. Do you mind kind of walking us through the different ways that we see that it's disruptive, and maybe some takes that we haven't seen anyone else kind of come out with yet?
Sure. So the first thing I would say is I think that this has actually happened many times before. And somehow it always gets kicked down the road. It always gets delayed. And usually the way the media picks that up is the main culprit of that is Apple, because Apple's the most affected company by this regulation. So if you think about what's really going on here, most Android smartphones use a standard charger, either a USB micro or USB-C to charge. The interesting thing while this European regulation is going on is, like you said, Apple phones don't work with Android chargers and vice versa. So they're trying to force interoperability. But we know in the work that the Wireless Power Consortium is doing and that we've been involved with, that Apple's been involved with, that Samsung's been involved with, all of these stakeholders, we've created a common standard where phones can all charge wirelessly. When they talk about developing countries that have skipped the entire infrastructure of putting up telephone poles, and they went directly to cellular, it kind of seems like that there's an equivalence here with wireless charging and in Europe, trying to get all the phones working on one common charging platform. There is a wireless platform that already exists that Apple phones literally work with and Samsung phones work with. It seems a little bit like old, or like I think retrograde might be the word, when you're like trying to like now figure out that USB-C should be the thing, but Apple's resistant.
Yeah.
Apple's already adopted Qi. Let's go for it. Like go with what works. Don't put up telephone poles when wireless already exists.
So it's not only just like this is disruptive because it's standardizing the wires, but it's also for the iPhone, the Apple Watch, AirPods. Those are some of their biggest sellers. And then not only that, it's like these are huge revenue streams on their own, just the cords.
Yeah.
And whether or not someone's buying the cord directly from Apple, or if it's a third party that has to license, that's just so disruptive for not having to purchase those anymore.
Are we understanding the proposed legislation to be not just for phones, it's also for other devices?
I've read that it's all electronic devices.
Oh, wow. That's a huge thing. Yeah. So in that case, it is even much bigger because phones have a different, power capability or power need. Let's say a standard phone wants 10 to 15 watts or so to charge, the charge rate to charge the battery. Watches, like an Apple Watch, is probably under 5 watts. Smaller wearables like a Whoop or a Fitbit, they're going to be under 2 watts, or a Samsung Galaxy Gear type fitness watch. Earbuds are also in that 1 to 2 watt range, and so that's an interesting regulation if they're trying to standardize all that, because you think about the size of the connectors. That makes sense for a phone. Doesn't make sense for earbuds necessarily. Those are small devices or a wearable. Can you imagine putting a USB-C onto a Fitbit or a Whoop size device?
I wouldn't want to.
Or an Oura Ring?
Yeah.
Like, you can't.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting if that ends up coming to pass. But like I said earlier, this legislation has been talked about for a decade. It's had its ebbs and flows of like, it's being passed, never mind, we're delaying it. It does seem like there's a lot of lobbying going on in the background. And I think the ultimate loser in that is, the environment. It allows this continued proliferation and need for every time electronic device is sold. It has to come with its own unique power supply. It has to come with its own unique cord, its own unique conversion brick. And ultimately, we all have a drawer in our house or a Tupperware in our house where we all put our old cables.
Dusty.
And, yeah, right? And like you're like, maybe I'll need this again someday. And you would never even be able to find it if you do need it. And then ultimately you move and then you throw them in the landfill, and then it contributes to this e-waste problem. It's not just the landfills though, it's all the energy that goes in, the energy and materials that go into building these devices in the first place. It's expensive environmentally to build these things. So it would be much better. I think the EU's on a, the right type of mission to say, let's standardize.
Yep.
Everyone play by the same, rules of interconnectivity, because it would reduce the need to use precious resources to create, millions, hundreds of millions of additional electronic devices every year that can all theoretically charge similarly. But, I'm not hugely convinced that this will really pass and will actually be in effect come August 2024 or autumn 2024. I have a suspicion that it will get kicked again. And like I said, the loser there is the environment.
All right. Well, thank you.